Hello and welcome back to the Worcester Senior Center Stay Connected programming on Channel 192. My name is Suki Lapin and I am the program coordinator at the Worcester Senior Center. Today we bring you Intro to Zoom session number 3, hosting a Zoom meeting. Please welcome back instructor Richard Spool.
Take it away, Richard, right?
Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Those of you who are here and those of you who are watching us through video later on. We're going to cover a number of things, but I want to first point out something that Suki and I had talked about. There are lots of controls that a host has when running a meeting, managing the participants, allowing certain activities, not allowing other activities. However, we agreed that our audience that we're seeing from the Worcester Community Center, Worcester Senior Center, that primarily we're going to be using this for friends and family, not for business activities. And there's quite a few controls that are for the business or for education environment and so forth. So, excuse me. So I won't be covering a lot of those. I'll be focusing on the ones that most of us are going to be dealing with when we're hosting for our friends and our family. Okay. One thing I just wanted to point out before we begin, I do have again, because I cannot show you my Zoom activities on Zoom. I put together this, a small PowerPoint presentation to highlight the screenshots and so forth. But I just want to point out one thing we were talking about before we began, and that is if you are on mute, and I don't know, I'm hoping our audience can see this, but if you're on mute, I'm going to turn myself on mute for a moment. Look where my name is in the lower left corner of my screen. You might have noticed that there was that the old-fashioned microphone, red with a line through it. I mention that because a lot of times people forget that they're on mute, and when they start talking and no one can hear them, you'll see a lot of people saying things or going like this or doing all sorts of things. Look in the lower left corner, where a person's name is. We're looking at this gallery of views of people. And that's a great way. If you're a host, you might want to say, Bill, you're on mute. Would you unmute yourself? Just to let people become active. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And one of the things that I do, I want to point out now because it's part of my presentation. When you share the screen, again, I'll have screenshots for this. You have a couple of choices, 2 choices basically. You have a choice of sharing a particular thing. I could just share my PowerPoint presentation, and that's it. And if I wanted to look at something else, I would then have to unshare and then go back in and share that specific thing. As an instructor at Quinsigamond Community College, I go from I teach computer literacy. I go from a PowerPoint slideshow to a Word or an Excel document, and I go back and forth to a variety of things. So what I do, and I'm going to do it this time, I will be sharing my desktop with you, which means I have the flexibility of looking at a lot of stuff. In a social environment, the chances are good that you probably won't be sharing your screen at all. You'll be talking with other people. But you might have photographs, you might have websites you want to share. And if you just want to share that one thing for a little while and then come back, just focus in on sharing that application, which means you have to get it up on the screen before you start sharing. I got everything ready before this session began. And or just go into desktop, the first choice, upper left corner, and that'll allow you to be a lot more flexible. I also have to warn you, I don't think it's part of my presentation, but a little warning. Make sure that you have anything you don't want other people to see on your desktop, minimize or get rid of. Just have the things you want to have there. All righty. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Oh, you didn't make me a co-host, did you, Suki? Because I don't have the capability of sharing my screen. You're still muted. I'm okay now? I'll try it again. Yep, no, I can do that. And I will just share my screen. That's the default setting. Okay, you all can see my PowerPoint. I'm going to start my PowerPoint slideshow. What you cannot see is over here. You can see my mouse, I hope, moving around. But over here is a gallery of pictures. It is flexible. I'm going to drag it across. You can move it around the screen. I mean, all you can see is that my mouse is moving around, but I can see this. And there is a minimize. It's called hide thumbnail video. Hide this. I'm going to minimize it so it's just a little floating bar. Also, I have this, which again, you only see my mouse moving around. You can't see it, but this is my sharing toolbar, which has a red stop share button. The one problem is they get in the way. Okay, so I'm going to start my presentation. Yep. What did I do? All right. Come on. There we go. Okay. Welcome to our third and last session. This one we're going to focus in on hosting a Zoom meeting. First session was how do you become a participant? What is Zoom? We talked about briefly the history of Zoom, and some of how Zoom is used. The second session was getting your, in our case, our free account and creating a meeting. And this account is now we have a meeting. We're going to host it. So I'm going to get my toolbar out of the way. So as I said earlier, that this is going to be a focus on friends and family. We're not going to be talking about features of Zoom for meetings for business, education, and sales. Those features are not needed for friendly meetings, and I'm not going to discuss them. So this is what we're going to cover today. The way you can have before you share a screen, the way you can have the various videos look like. There's basically two versions, and I'll talk about that and show some examples of how you could rearrange the views of everyone who's a participant. The other one I want to talk about is how do you share your screen, both as a host and as a participant, and also the tools that a host has to enable or disable participants from sharing their screen. And there's a number of small issues I want to just briefly touch upon at the end. And when that's over with, I'm basically finished for this last session, and we'll have an opportunity to have questions and answers. Okay. So again, a reminder, you can change the video layout when no one is sharing the screen. When someone shares the screen, like now, all you see primarily is the screen you can have a floating chat, you can have a floating participant list, you can have a floating gallery view of the people, floating speakers view. Those are different kinds of things you can have, but primarily you're looking at someone's screen. But this is before we do that. So there's a active speaker view. I don't know what your view was. Mine has changed to what is called the gallery view, which I'll point out the next view. But generally, an active speaker view, you'll see a picture. It's typically the default, and it mostly focuses it on the speaker and whoever the speaker is. If different people start talking at different times, their picture will be the primary one. In the gallery view, you can get up to 49 people. And there are arrows to the left side and right side of that gallery view. And this is what I saw when I first came in. that allows you, if you have a larger amount than 49 people, to get into it. A reminder that for the free one, you have up to 100 people. I don't know how many family friend members you have, but you do have up to 100 people participating, so you can have them all if you want seen. And by the way, you can also, well, let me get into this first. First, the active one. This is a typical screenshot. At the top, you see at the top, you see the participants. In this case, there are 2 of them showing, or 2 others showing, and there is the speaker down below. Okay, and if Molly, for example, started talking, her picture would be swapped into the bigger screen, and I can't see whoever this person is would then move to the top section. This is a common view. So you basically get to see pretty much who is doing the presenting. I'm going to go back for a second. If you look up here where it says the gallery view, this is where you can change it. If you click on that feature in your upper right corner, again, you can't see it because I am sharing my screen. But up here, when we get back into it, you'll see this gallery view, and you can have these various choices. We might go through that. I don't know if the audience will see it, but we can go through that for at least our participants. Here's the gallery view. So we swapped. This gives you, you can see over here, this is the alternative going back to the speaker view. So it's basically go in and out of those 2 views. And this gives you a whole list. And when someone like Jack over here is speaking, the screen gets highlighted so you can visually see who is speaking. Okay, and remember, if you're speaking but you're on mute, you would not be active in the screen here. All right, and by the way, guys, if any of you have questions while I'm doing my PowerPoint presentation, since I can't see you at the moment, I've minimized the participant screen, please ask me the questions. Just interrupt me. I'll be happy to answer them as we go through this. Now, this is a full screen is like the maximize. If you're using a Windows environment, the same thing when with a Macintosh. If you can either have the full screen focus in on your Zoom meeting, or you could reduce it to a smaller size. I will show you how to get into the full size. Well, I'll go ahead and do this. In the upper right side of your Zoom meeting, again, without the sharing, you'll see by the gallery view or the speaker's view, you'll see that 4-headed arrow that I've highlighted in red. If you click on it, it alternates between going into the full size and going back to the reduced size view. Okay. If you're in full size, you can also just press the escape key if you're on with a keyboard, and it'll get you out of it. Escape won't get you into the full view, but it'll get you out of the full view. So what are the advantages? If you're the host, this is again my recommendations. There's not a requirement, but if you're the host, and if you're not planning on sharing your screen, yeah, make the whole view. You know, you're having a personal chat with a friend or a family member. Yeah, make the whole screen so you get to see as much as possible. On the other hand, if like I have done today, and what I'm teaching, if you are going to share your screen, I recommend you have the minimum. Not the minimum. You put it to the reduced size, and I change the size by going to the reduced size screen window and dragging it tighter in, because I don't need to see my audience as much as I want to see my desktop to make sure everything is ready for my sharing of the screen. Okay. When I'm sharing the screen, that has something to do with the full screen. You all, I presume, will see whatever, whether you have a full screen or not. You will see what I'm sharing. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the screen functions, the share screen functions that a host has. Okay, this allows you have the right to allow or prevent your participants from sharing his or her screen. And here's an example of a share screen. You're looking at it right now, but here's one I thought was good, because it shows, I don't know if there's a PowerPoint slide. Well, this is a Macintosh, but whether it's a slideshow or a Word document, but here's something that the speaker is presenting. You see the speaker's view of the person talking, and a chat. You could have also had a smaller participant's view showing up here, all within the screen, the Zoom window. Okay. By having these things here, it reduces the size of your shared screen. On the other hand, it might be good to be able to see chats, and it might be useful to see yourself speaking or other people speaking. Okay. Now, how do you allow your participants to share screen or not allow, basically? Okay. If you want or not want your participants, the people who are joining you in your meeting, to share your screen, if you're the host now, when you go down to share screen, there is that drop down list, or looks like drop up list. Just click, you click on the arrow next to your share screen button, and that brings up this little menu, which again, only the host has, and you can click then on the advanced sharing options. When you do, you have this screen show up. Now, notice there are 3 sections. These are the defaults, and I really recommend that you leave how many participants can share at the same time. You can actually have many people sharing at the same time, but it gets very confusing. I recommend you leave this at 1 participant at a time. And lastly, who could start sharing when someone else is sharing? In other words, if they're in this mode, replace the person who's sharing with what you or someone else can share. I highly recommend you be the only one as the host to do this. So you'd be the only one interrupting them. Okay, this is a section where who can share screens. And if you want other people to share the screens, just make sure this is clicked on, so all your participants have that option of sharing the screen. Now, how do you prevent everybody from not sharing the screen? It's very simple. Here, you just click on only hosts can share. So those are your 2 choices, basically. I recommend leave this alone and leave this alone, and either allow everybody or just you as the host to do the sharing. Depends on what you want out of your meeting. Okay. If you're going to share a screen, whether you're a participant or host, you will see the share screen. Notice this one doesn't have the drop-down list because this is a participants list. And you just click on that share screen button. And then this comes up asking you to select a screen. Typically in the upper left corner, I'm not sure why all this stuff is. I just grabbed the screenshot. But typically you'll see screen or desktop. And this allows you in the upper left corner, and this is the defaults. This is the first one you come to. This allows you to choose any changes you make on your desktop or your main screen. You could, the audience will see, okay? Or you can have something set up already. A whiteboard is something that allows you and or other people to draw things. So if you were teaching arithmetic, you can actually have a whiteboard up and start doing your arithmetic there. And other people can join in and use markers, etc., and write stuff on there. I'm not going to cover that because that's usually used for education or business stuff. It's not something most people do, friends and family kind of setting. And again, PowerPoint, whatever, you can go to websites. There's all sorts of things. Whatever you have made active on your desktop will be shown here as your option. You click one of them, and when you're ready, after you've clicked one of them, you just click that share button at the bottom of the screen. All right. And bang, you're into sharing it. Okay. Your screen will be shared to all people, all right, automatically. You will, as I mentioned, you will see this kind of a floating toolbar for your sharing. It gives you some tools. You can annotate your screen. There's a whole bunch of more tools, but these are the common ones that you have. This ID is what Zoom has assigned you for the meeting. I can't remember if this is the meeting ID or your ID. But anyway, the nice thing about this toolbar, the bad thing is typically it blocks what you're saying. The audience can't see this. Your participants can't see this, or whoever is not sharing it can't see this. But it does block what you want to show, and I can't keep moving mine around. Mine right now is in the bottom of my screen. But you can drag it. I'm pretending I'm doing it now. You can drag it around. You can't make it disappear, but you can drag it around and sort of reduce the size, or at least get it out of your way. When you're ready to stop sharing your screen, the green button to share, now it's a red button to stop sharing. It's pretty straightforward. Just click on that and you'll go back to the gallery or the speaker's view. Okay, very simple. Now, this was there's a couple of questions I found that as I'm doing my research for this series, that I thought there were a lot of people out there who had questions and there were concerns. And one of them was, can the host see the participant screen without permission? In other words, can I grab yours? Can I look and see your background, whatever you have on your desktop? Okay, without your permission, without you sharing it with us? And the answer is no longer. It used to be there. There was such a function. It was used by, I put in boss, it could be your department head, whoever's hosting the meeting, and instructors like me. It was there to monitor participants. So the boss would make sure that you're not doing any personal stuff, you're just doing business stuff on your screen. And for instructors, it was a very useful tool where we can take a look, see if the students are keeping up with the class and paying attention and are not off, on eBay or something else. However, there were lots of complaints. So Zoom stopped this feature in 2020, roughly April, May, I can't remember exactly. And I tell you, a lot of people were very happy. It was not a feature we wanted our boss or instructors to have, or anyone else to have, any other host. So that is not available. So unless you're willing to share your screen, no one else, including the host, can see whatever's on your desktop, okay? Now, there's also an issue of Zoom bombing. I am aware of this, but I've never experienced this. But this is where you're hosting a meeting and someone comes in who's uninvited and joins your meeting. And I'll talk about how that happens in a moment. This is where Zoom, and typically uninvited people are not nice people. They join, they're joining to do damage. And they can say things, they can share screens if you allow them to. They can even just hold up pictures in front of their camera if you can't share the screen, that are offensive. I know that, and I don't think it's happened to my synagogue, but I know many synagogues across the country, if not the world, and other religious and nonprofit organizations who have, there are people who are against them for whatever reason. We used to advertise our meetings publicly, and then people would join in and then disrupt the meeting. Okay. Now, there are tools, which I'm not going to discuss because the chances are excellent that won't happen. But one of the things that everyone has done, like my synagogue, what we've done is we send out invitations to just the people who want them, or we make it available not on the website, but through an email to the members that we want to have join us. So even for our services that we're now holding online through Zoom, those invitations are only available to the members of the congregation. It is up to us as participants not to share that invitation with other people, because once you do that, who are not initially invited, it can get out of hand. And again, people who Zoom bomb, as it's called, could disrupt a meeting. There are tools to kick a participant out, block them, etc. I'm not going to go into details on that because the chances are very low that you're going to have it in your kind of meetings. But I do have a couple of presentations, some websites that I found that had pretty easy to understand explanations about Zoom bombing and how to stop it. So these are live. And one of the things that I sent Suki, and I think she's already emailed it to you, one of the attachments is a copy of this presentation to the participants. And when you get it, it's in a PDF format, and you go through it, when you get to this screen, which is towards the end, it will be linkable so you can look at these if you so want. Or not. I mean, again, chances are excellent in a private kind of meeting that you're be holding, it won't happen. But if it does, you might want to know how to stop. And these are two reputable websites. Oops, I'm sorry, I accidentally clicked on that. This is what happened. I'm going to unclick on it, get back to my, where am I? I want to minimize that. Oh, here we are. So I must have accidentally clicked on that. I'm going to go to the next screen. So how do we end a meeting? Now notice, for all of you who are not hosts, yours says leave meeting. I'll discuss that in a second. But I want to point out what happens when, as a host, what happens when you want to end the meeting. When you click on that end meeting button on the right side of your toolbar, you get this kind of set of options. And the two big ones are end meeting for all and leave meeting. Now, leave meeting is as if you were a participant. Now, the participants don't get this screen, obviously. Okay, what's the difference as a host? Well, if you end the meeting for all, the whole meeting, the whole Zoom meeting stops. You basically kicked everyone out. I know, for example, when I'm teaching, I tell my students I'll be on for another, until 6:30 or whatever the time is. I'm ending my class, and I'll be happy to stay on. And I always say, I'll be happy to stay on until 6:30 or until the last participant leaves. So participants can leave when the meeting is over, and I'll wait and make sure everyone has a chance to finish up whatever conversation they want. And when they go, I end the meeting for all. And what I'm basically saying is, if you're going to choose end meeting for all, make sure you allow your meeting to have a sense of closure. Let them know you're going to do that or when you're going to do that. And also, give the participants, your friends and family, an opportunity to say goodbye, whatever it is, and to add. It just takes a few extra minutes, and it's a courtesy that I find very useful. Now, if you, as the host, click on leave meeting, some strange things happen. First off, someone has to be the host. If you have a co-host, if you designate someone to be a co-host, that person takes over hosting the meeting and has all the control that you had as a host. So in effect, that person goes from co-host to host, same responsibilities. If you haven't made that choice, or that person then leaves the meeting, not ending it, but leaves the meeting, I'm not sure exactly how this works out, but my understanding is that Zoom, the program, will designate one of the participants who are left, as the temporary host. And until the last person leaves, that host may keep changing. I really don't recommend the host leaving a meeting. There may also be another issue that came up in a session. I'm not sure about this for sure, but I believe we were waiting for the rabbi to come to a class she was holding, and there was a delay. And when she came on, she said that she was she had a committee meeting. She was a participant in before our class meeting, and she left the meeting. She was the host, but she left the meeting, like as I mentioned, leave meeting instead of ending it, so they can continue working. And when this is my guess, when she left the meeting and she gave over to a co-host that meeting, she lost her capability of hosting another meeting because she hosted the first one. You only can host one meeting at a time. So she had to go back into that meeting, and that was very easy. Just rejoined the meeting, took over being host, and explained that she had to close down that meeting. She did, and then she came back into our. She started our meeting and came back in as the host of our classroom. So there's weird stuff when you leave the meeting as a host, and I really don't recommend doing that. Now, as a participant, it's very straightforward. On the right side, you have just a leave meeting button. You click on that, and no matter how much you think life revolves around you, and I have a big ego, but the meeting will continue with the other participants and the host without you, and that's perfectly fine. There are times when you need to leave temporarily, and you can rejoin the meeting as long as it's still going on anytime you want to by clicking on clicking on the invitation link and rejoining. This is something I discovered, and I put this together for you. I kept noticing that when I ended my meeting or left my meeting, I could not get rid of that little Zoom button on the toolbar in the bottom of a Windows screen. It kept there. And even though I closed out every window, that was still there until I discovered, and I haven't really seen this anywhere else. I right-click. When you right-click something in Windows, right-click means you just point to something with your mouse and click, just press briefly the right button. It brings up a menu, and the menu depends on what object you are right-clicking upon. When you right-click the Zoom window, you can see the tasks above, and the top one is quit the Zoom meeting. When you click on that, this button on your taskbar, and I just took a small shortcut of that, will disappear. It'll also disappear when you close, when you shut down your computer, et cetera. But it's a pain to have that sit there for any length of time. It's just unnecessary. So I'm now in the habit that when I'm finished with a meeting, whether I'm hosting or I'm leaving, I'll just right-click as I close out everything. I right-click the Zoom button and shut it down. Okay, that's it. I mean, those are major issues. I've left out things like a waiting room. I think I talked about it in the previous class. I am a big fan of not using, let me close that out. I'm going to stop sharing right now. Stop sharing. Hello, everyone. So a waiting room, excuse me, a hazard of speaking a lot. So a waiting room means that when a participant signs in, rather than go directly into our session like all of us have, you're placed into purgatory. You're placed into what's called a waiting room, and the host has the right to allow you to come in. Okay, I am not a fan of that because sometimes the host doesn't even have to be there, but if you click on a meeting that has been timed to start at a certain time, we participants can get on, if there's no waiting room, can actually get on and talk until the host comes on. So I don't recommend the waiting room for your friends and family kinds of meetings. By the way, one of the safeguards to stop Zoom bombing is to have a waiting room so that you can see, as the host, you can see who's waiting to get in. And if you don't recognize a name, you don't have to allow that person in. So it's up to you. But I like to leave the waiting room off, let people come. They can chat before the host literally gets on, as long as the meeting's scheduled for a certain time. And it's nice.
Excellent programming. Once again, thank you again, Richard Spool. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and stay connected by watching Channel 192.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.